and not only Virginia Tech, but UCLA. One other coach at Oregon who I think could maybe make sense at
Tosh Lupoi.
Exactly. So Tosh has been Dan Lanning's defense coordinator there for the last few years, has done some good stuff with that defense. He's also from California, energetic, beyond high energy guy, hell of a recruiter, which we've known about Tosh going back to
Alabama.
Exactly. For a long time, and even pre-Bama, that's one that, like, I don't know if you can call UCLA the same kind of sleeping giant by any means that we were calling Arizona State a couple of years ago. But you've seen what Kenny Dillingham has done as just young, energetic head coach, has just breathed a certain type of energy and life into that program. And I could see someone with the characteristics of a Tosh doing that for a UCLA. And just based on the success that Oregon's having, based on what they're in line to do the rest of the way this year, and the fact that they're doing a good job defensively to go along with that, and Tosh's resume just frankly being what it is, I would be somewhat surprised to a degree if Tosh isn't at the very least an interview type guy for that job. And again, from California. So there are some ties there, and has worked in the state before. So
producer Aaron wants to mention that he was a coach at Cal for a long time and spent a lot of his career on the West Coast. So
and is very furious. And is very furious that he left Cal, and he says, "quote unquote," stole recruits. We're not going to comment on that. Producer Aaron's got some sour grapes, but let's get deeper into UCLA and what kind of candidate pool they might be looking at, because again, the administration there is an interesting situation. Is Martin Drummond going to have full control on this hire? I have my doubts.
I would mention it's the same. I mean, we'll see what happens, but it is quite literally the exact same two people running that search as of right now. And you can even see it in the press release. It's Drummond and Aaron Atkins, who's their associate athletic director, that made the hire last time and kind of pivoted to Deshaun Foster very quickly during that coaching cycle. So unless they go out and hire a legitimate search firm, I think people around the industry are going to have some questions about how this is run.
Okay, so the question is, will UCLA make a big swing? If they do, the name that came up to me from someone was Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. Pasadena native, has the West Coast ties, previously at Oregon State. Michigan State, no offense, is a second-tier Big Ten program. UCLA is in that situation too, but because it's on the West Coast, maybe he wants another fresh start, go back out west. Maybe that would be tempting to him. But who else would be interesting there? We mentioned Tosh Lupoi from Zenit's there. Would Jonathan Smith be interested in this type of gig? Who else would be on the table there potentially?
A name that I think is going to come up and has come up is Tony White, the defensive coordinator at Florida State. He's a UCLA alumnus, has been up for a number of head coach jobs the last couple of years, just interviewed in a couple of these situations. And especially if Florida State continues the momentum they've had this year, like, I think Tony White is a guy who can garner some momentum there. And a lot of agents have mentioned his name to me, not only today, but in the last couple months, if UCLA ever comes open. So that's a guy that you definitely need to keep an eye on among a number of others.
What if Dan Mullen has a very successful first year at UNLV?
That would be a very interesting fit, Dan Mullen and UCLA, but very good head coach. I think Lynn, the defensive coordinator at USC, has come up. Worked at UCLA previously. As a guy
USC stole him.
Yes, and now UCLA could potentially
some guys like that would take it at this point.
Really?
I don't know. I'm not saying 100% no, but you're going to see a lot of coaches that have reservations about that situation.
Yeah. What about Will Stein? What about Will Stein at Oregon?
I mean, wait, will somebody who's put himself in a position that he's deserving of consideration for P4 opportunities? That there's no question whatsoever. But you did bring up interesting name with Dan Mullen. Like, had somebody in the industry, I'll just say, bring up coming out of UNLV's win over UCLA, going back to week 2, that quote unquote, you may have just seen the next coach at UCLA be the soon to be fired head coach at UCLA.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Dan Mullen. I can be the head coach out in LA. Yeah, it's great. Kevin Pryor in the YouTube chat mentions, would UCLA look to go prime time and take a look at Deion Sanders? I mean, I don't know, but can you imagine prime time in LA and Westwood? That would draw a lot of eyes. I don't know if he would want to take it, but you know,
I don't know. I don't know if Deion Sanders wants to take a second with all the medical issues he's had. I don't know if Deion Sanders wants to take a second, like, giant overhaul of a program infrastructure.
And he's also making a lot of money there in Boulder.
$10 million a year for Colorado, right? Like UCLA, I would be very surprised if they got to $10 million for their next head coach.
Right, exactly. I mean, UCLA. Here's the thing: UCLA probably can't afford to drag this out, right? They're going to have to jump early, right, to try to get someone before all these other big jobs open up in late October, November. Try to make some headway.
I mean, how early can they really jump, though? If you're hiring a sitting head coach, that sitting head coach isn't going to accept that job in season.
That's why I'm talking assistants.
I also think no.
Yeah, and I was going to say for assistants, like we bring up the 2 Oregon guys with Tosh and Will. Those are coaches that are part of potential playoff or national championship team. So I could see there being just some pause there to just accept something at another school at some sort of ridiculously early point. I don't know, but at the same time, whether it's UCLA, whether it's Virginia Tech, that there are players on those rosters that the next head coach is not going to want to lose and leave the program. So it's a difficult thing to balance, but at the same time, for Virginia Tech, we throw out primarily sitting head coaches. That kind of stuff just frankly is not going to happen until after the regular season, right, or until after conference championship games. And then even for assistants, the timing of this can be sensitive.
I would also throw out timing wise, and we'll see how this plays out. But like theoretically, and like this is something I've had a couple people bring up, the timeline could actually get pushed back a little bit if the transfer portal period gets pushed to January and they truly go dead in December. There's less of a impetus to hire immediately in early December before signing day. Like you obviously want to. There's still a signing day in December, and that matters. But like I don't think schools are going to be in as much of a hurry. Like it still makes sense to get your guy in as early as possible, but there's not going to be kind of that bum rush that we've seen in recent years because of the impetus of the portal. Like with that being delayed a little bit, schools have a little bit more time to get adjusted, hire, and also convince their players to come back.
By the way,
but I did want to throw out one more name, just for UCLA that I'm curious to get y'all's take on. And this is something I had an agent throw at me, I think more as a thought exercise than anything. But what about the name Dave Aranda? West Coast guy.
He was a guy that was mentioned UCLA in the past. If the way I would see that potentially happening is if Baylor just has like an 8-win season, something like that, where they're not in the Big 12 contention, but they have a really good year. And he's like, this is about it. Because if I have another like 6-win year here, maybe they want to move on. So maybe I need to make the jump now. If he's very, very successful at Baylor this year, and I think they have the talent to win the Big 12 this year, they are very, very physical. I don't think he would even entertain it. But that is a very interesting name, and I think it depends a lot on circumstances of how Baylor performs this season.
Well, I can think of a notable Baylor alumnus, and that is part of the show that if I remember correctly, early in the game against SMU was maybe thinking about some columns he could write about David Aranda's future. So it could change quickly in college football, which is
I think he's
probably
a
why
great
first
coach.
prospect.
I think he's a great coach, and I love his personality. We don't get to see enough of it because he's very much in the Mike Leach out there frame of mind. He's got some interesting things to say, although he's a little bit more reserved. I love him in college football. I think he's a great coach, personally, a CEO type.